I think we need to fix the Supreme Court.
They are no longer public servants in the way that we have always imagined them to be.
The courts have become yet another battlefield.
The conversation around judicial reform really started outside the 2020 nominating process, but it's moved inside pretty quickly. It was really a reaction to the last two Supreme Court appointments by President Trump and real concern among liberal activists that this meant for a generation the court is going to be lost. There's going to be a sustained conservative majority. Court packing historically refers to what Franklin Roosevelt tried to do during the New Deal. He wasn't able to get a number of his policies approved by the court, so he proposed expanding it.
We have therefore reached the point as a nation where we must take action to save the Constitution from the court and the court from itself.
Members of the Supreme Court at the time worked quietly with members of Congress and in the end were able to basically block that proposal from going forward. But ever since then, it's been seen, court packing infers something that's not legitimate. The irony here is that a lot of the liberal groups have actually embraced that term, court packing, and called for it. They're not trying to stay away from the idea of the court being an explicitly political body right now, and therefore has to be dealt with in explicitly political ways.
I'd be very interested in looking at a very significant transparency agenda for the Supreme Court.
First, they steal a Supreme Court seat. Then they turn around and change the rules on filibuster on a Supreme Court seat. And so when it swings back around to us, what are we going to do? And my answer on that is all the options are on the table.
I think I would like to start exploring a lot of options, and we should have a national conversation. Term limits for Supreme Court justices might be one thing, to give every president the ability to choose 3.
There's another idea of having term limits on those justices so that there's a more regular rotation through there. We're a country of 320 million people. There's got to be the talent and the wisdom and the perspective.
I'm interested in a policy where you would have 5 appointees of Republicans and 5 of Democrats on a 15-member court, and where you get the other 5 from is a consensus of the other 10, which has to be unanimous.
The simplest proposal would be to simply add to the number of justices on the court. Right now there are 9, but the Constitution doesn't prescribe a number for how many should be there, and that number has varied pretty dramatically over the country's history. There are not many candidates right now who have come out and said, this will be in my platform. So we're not quite there yet. But for Republicans, anything that is this disruptive or controversial can play into their argument that the Democratic Party is really a group of radicals and that's why you should re-elect President Trump.
If they can't catch up through the ballot box by winning an election, they want to try doing it in a different way now.
Court packing is one of these institutional reforms that are being talked about in the Democratic primary, but it's just one of them. And the Democratic Party has been pushed to the point of really wanting to upset the whole system, whereas if you go back 10 years ago, the Democratic Party was quite happy with the system. President Obama was president, liberal policies were being passed into law, and it just shows how quickly this can turn. And I wouldn't be surprised if 10 years from now, Republicans are making many of these same calls if the balance of power switches.
All right, let's do something. Hey, it's Wesley Lowery of the Washington Post here. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of our latest reporting, analysis, and stay up to date on what's going on in the world around you.
Have you read all those books?
No, not even close.